Hey, this is Yogi Bryan. I interview DTO Music, my buddy Dave. If you haven't listened to DTO Music, you need to do it now on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all that stuff, but do it after this. You got to watch this interview. We talk about music. We recorded this back around April, beginning of April, right when the whole pandemic was happening and things were shutting down, unfortunately. So I want to get this out to you. Visit dtomusic.com. You have to add him to your playlist. His song Breathe is one of my favorites. I have it on my playlist. But let's get to the interview here. Boom. Today's guest, we have DTO Music. Dave, how's it going?
So good, brother. Thanks for having me here. Grateful.
Grateful. Your music is such good music, especially for the times of today. A lot of people are worried, a lot of people are anxious, and they can go to your music and just find that solitude. So tell me, Dave, DTO Music, what does that stand for? I know what it stands for, but tell me.
Down to Ohm.
Down to Ohm. Heck yes, down to Ohm. Everybody needs some down to Ohm right now. Oh, he's got the rain stick out. There we go. Just feel the vibes, everyone. Feel the vibes. Soak them up. Relax. Feel the rain. Yes. So what have you been up to during this time? Because let me rewind a little bit, everybody. I was on Dave's show.
Yep.
And I was going to go meet Dave at the Sedona Yoga Festival. And then all this whole coronavirus stuff started unwinding and they started closing everything.
Yep.
And now we're all doing online stuff. So what are you up to?
Well, we had the car packed up for Sedona Yoga Festival. I was stoked. You and I were texting back and forth. Had this opportunity to meet each other in 3D because, I had you on my show and it was great. And wow, yeah, everything shifted. I'd like to say that the world went from zero to crazy.
Gosh, right? Fast.
Very fast. Yeah.
Very fast. Matter of weeks.
Completely. So if you're watching this in the future, COVID-19 was pretty fresh around the time that we're describing, and it just made this huge impact for us. And I've been going inward, and of course we're here to be responsible and stay indoors, be quarantined, wear a mask, and all of these. We just got groceries delivered to us and wiped everything down, have our garage is so it's like a whole triage center,
Right.
Scrub down the apples more than the bananas, and then
exactly go to one room and clean everything, and then go to the next room and clean more, and then you can get back to your space, right?
Absolutely. And being a yogi is being sanitized, right now, being clean, and cleanliness is a part of that pathway. And it's interesting because what we're being called right now in the world is to look at our immune system, look at our health.
Yes.
And it's really powerful. I feel that we get to utilize these practices into our lives and, realize if you're home by yourself, and brother, I know you have an amazing meditation practice. You're like, oh, I get to meditate more. Okay. So how do we in these challenging times perceive it as opportunity? I feel that's the balance. As
exactly.
Have you heard this or seen this? The Chinese characters for crisis mean danger and opportunity. They're two characters combined together. So within every crisis that's ever happened on the planet, within our own personal lives, there's danger and risk, and then there's also opportunity.
Yes, also opportunity. And especially as creators, you're a creator in music, I'm a creator in memes and meditations and things like that. Yeah. It's really a great time to go inward. And how has this affected your music? Have you been making more music, or are you just way in tune with that inner just meditation and making music? Or
yeah, I would say all the above for that, but mainly it's every creative soul that's listening right now, which is everyone. I feel everyone's a creative, right? We're a creature of creation, and we get to have creativity. So I've had multiple projects that have gathered digital dust that I began years ago, or just, hey, the someday syndrome, oh yeah, I'll do this someday in the future. But guess what? In the past, we'd say there wasn't enough time. Yeah. So Father Time is here, and we get to say, yeah, let's make this happen. So I have a new release coming out in a couple of weeks. I had Mumbai Moves is a launch 2 weeks ago, and that's with the amazing producer Songs of Eden in Sweden. And yeah, so now there's international collab. Like, it's just great. Like, connections. And it feels like, even though we can't see each other and, give each other hugs and yoga, get an adjustment or get a massage, it's interesting how we can, through these pixelations, right? And like, we still get to have, social distancing, but we still feel each other. Like, exactly. We don't, even though we're physical distancing, we don't have to have social distancing, right? And so that's one of the paradigm shifts I think a lot of people are recognizing. Is I've had more Zoom calls with my family and with Himalaya's family and with our tribe here, where we're all connected and finding a way. And I feel like adaptability has been the theme. And so for me to realize, yeah, I want to have a launch per month. So I've adapted my launch routine as far as my music, because there's so much within me that wants to come out. So that's my answer as far as my creativity. It's been just like emerging, and all of these projects, all those seeds that I'd planted with remix producers, other producers, ideas. It's amazing how you get to now uncover those and say, okay, here we go. And a lot of people are seeking it, right? Like, when you have your home practice, to have brand new, fresh beats that go along with your meditation, all of that matters. So that's where I feel the calling, and to follow my dharma is to keep the flow flowing.
Just keep the flow flowing. And it is so true. When we have these opportunities, and it's just a difficult time right now for everyone, and everyone is, staying inside and just really contemplating and just thinking about, what are the next steps. And as, creative, I listened to, I believe it was a TED Talk where to get in a creative state, like, say if you're in a rut on creativity, and to get in a creative state, like, sometimes these producers would throw like just something totally random, like, at these creators. Like, for example, like if you're a singer, they would say like, hey, you need to be on the drums now. And the singer would never be on the drums. And it would just like frustrate the person so much, where it kind of just changes a shift in the brain. And then they're just exploding with creativity. So it just sounds like how, you were traveling, you're doing all these things, and, just having that travel time, takes time away from, the creativity and the music. And now you're just kind of all in the music, all in the creativity. So it's just, it's such an adjustment, isn't it? Such an adjustment.
Absolutely. And when you think of it, like, how do we measure time? And per breath, per moment, per day. And now we're in a paradigm where it's a day that ends in the letter Y.
Right. Exactly. It's today. That's what day it is. It's
now o'clock.
now o'clock. And how have you been, channeling the anxiety, the uncertainty? Like, what have you, because you make this relaxing music, this meditative music, this yoga music, like, how have you personally been, with this anxiety, this uncertainty?
Yeah, we're all human beings. We all have temporary emotions. I'm going to emphasize the word temporary.
Temporary, I like that.
Because if you're a kid lying in the grass, you look up and you see these clouds, emotions and thoughts are just like passing clouds. And you get to say, wow, I really honor that cloud for what it is. I see it, and it's not going to be here forever. And that's the way I've recognized it, like, to really feel into the feelings. And as we all know, a lot of times we get into this information fatigue, and we get super heady in our minds, and then we start like planning, and what if this, and where are we going to go? We're going to go into a bunker, and you think, we have enough water, we have enough propane, do we have enough food, and you get into all of this in your head. It's all in your head, right? And of course it comes from your heart, because you love your family, you love your community, and you want everyone to be safe. And for me, the deeper I've gone into out of the mind, relaxing, getting that stillness, however that can take place. And I'm grateful to say that where I live in San Diego County, there's a trail nearby that is not a public trail, because they've closed all the public beaches, the trails, the parks, everything's not accessible. And it's a nice little trail path. Hardly anyone knows about it. And I've been just going out in nature and going on daily, sometimes once or twice, and just connecting with getting back to basics, right?
Basics, right? Yeah, it's really, yeah, getting back to basics, you know, just coming back to the breath, coming back to the present moment, just the basic things. And yeah, being out in nature, going on those hikes, going on those walks, so clutch. Just getting outside. Like even for me, when I take my dog for a walk, you know, definitely social distancing, but it's like, the sun just one step in front of the other. It's you know, amazing. I want to know, so let's rewind a little bit. DTO, when was the time where you're like, DTO? Like, when was it? Like, where were you? I want to hear it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And so my birth name is Dave, and you know, that's a wonderful name to have, which means the beloved one. And my last name is Kemp, which actually means warrior. And I have a song on my first album called Love Warrior, which is basically my name in disguise. And so I've myself as a world language teacher, I teach Spanish. That was my main trade. I studied and lived and traveled in 13 different countries. And so I've always loved language. I've always loved marketing as well. And it's really about your message. Like, you are your own brand. Like Yogi Bryan, you are who you are, and your t-shirt, your vibes, your beard, your energy, your memes, like everything all together is you. Like that's your aura, that's your persona. And this is like you being in your authenticity in the world, right? And I feel like everyone as an artist gets to have like their signature look, their sound, their expressions creatively. And for me, I realized that if I were to launch my music career as my birth name, like David Glenn Kemp, okay. And also I feel like I think I spoke to you about this, like in the spiritual communities, I don't know why, but so many yogis, there's so many Daves out there. Dave's not here.
There's a lot of Daves. A lot of yoga teachers that are named Daves,
right?
Too.
Yeah. And so David. So I would sometimes be in a gathering of friends and like 30 different people and be like 3-4 Daves in a room. And so I realized that I wanted to have a distinct name. And so around 2010, 2011, when I got into my yoga practice, I started to listening to Alan Watts, and he started, amazing English philosopher. And wow, he just talked about the human organism and would state like, we're all one, we're all connected, we're these organisms within the organism, right? We have Mother Earth, Gaia, Pachamama, La Madre Tierra. And then we're like, yeah, we're these beings. Like we didn't come into the world, we came out of it. And that's what's like shifting your perspective, right? And that's what I feel yoga provides for us is the asana practice. Of course, their shapes and their postures, and we move our bodies in these particular ways, but it's really like cleansing the mind, the heart, opening and allowing for our dharma, our purpose to come through. And from that, I realized that we're all connected. And with an Om, this goes into the down to Om part, is I was at Bhakti Fest, which similar to Sedona Yoga Fest was a transformational festival that people go to. And it was really powerful for me to be in a room with people, like 200 plus people. And we were all doing this collective Om, like an Om bath. It was Om.
Oh, amazing.
And it was one of those, you know, I'm from the cornfields of Iowa. My buddies and I didn't hang out in Om together, right? So it was great because all of a sudden I just felt this energy. And as a musician myself, you know, classically trained on piano, I've been playing all these styles of music. I just felt something that I hadn't ever experienced before. And, you know, when I was in this like time and space kind of stood still moment, when I was like feeling the moment, I was like, all of a sudden I heard this live music start to be played during the class. And that was like the awakening for me to be like, wow, that's it. Like my 3 decades of being a musician, my 3 years of practicing yoga just synergized in that moment. I was like, I'm going to design a yoga album specifically for a vinyasa sequence, right? That's going to be 60 minutes. That's my debut album, Nameless Energy. And I needed a name, of course. And so going back to like 2010, 2011, when I was listening to Alan Watts, it was great because I started to say like, to my friends, like, we're all these organisms. And that was like the key word. Like if you were to do like a word count of what I said from 6 a.m. to like 10 p.m., it'd be like the word organism would come out. Yeah. Yeah. Like maybe you say meme more than the average human being, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden my buddy was like, well, you're Dave. And we call you, people started having a nickname for me. It was the organism. So then one day, my buddy, JQ, really beautiful, amazing soul, he actually introduced me to electronic music production. And he said, well, you're Dave the organism. So the original meaning of DTO is Dave the organism, which then shifted into, down to ohm. So since you asked the question, I wanted to give you like a full backstory.
I love that. I love that backstory, because you always, right? I know myself and maybe everyone out there, like you always want to know, like, what was that point? Like, what was that point where it like shifted?
Yeah.
And it's great to hear like when you were sitting in that room and then you like felt the shift, like you felt the connection, you felt that organism, like you felt the oneness. And then now we're talking on, a show, and, I listen to your music quite a bit, when I do classes, just because I can feel that energy, like I can feel the vibe, and it's not like just like crazy music playing. And sometimes that's good, when you're like, you're in a vinyasa and you're flowing, but it's like, for me, I just like getting that connection. I like to relax. And like, that's where I come to your music. And I found you, it was Breathe, that song Breathe. And it just like really like, I played it in my classes. Then I would have, students come up to me and like, hey, what was that song? What was that song? And I'm sharing my playlist. And, I want to know, like, what's your favorite song you've made? Like, what's your like go-to? Like, you just like love that song. What's your favorite one? I'm sure all of them are your favorite, right? But like, what's your favorite?
Wow. That's a great question. I love it. No one's ever asked me that one. Seriously. You'd think like someone would ask a musician, like, what's your go-to? It's like when you're at a restaurant and you ask the server, like, what's your favorite meal? Because I'm
exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah. What's interesting? Because you mentioned the song Breath. And it has a version Breathe as well, Breath and Breathe, which is really like the root of what it's all about. And you asked earlier, like, how do you get inspiration? It's like through my breath. It's through being connected to self and nature. And I integrate sounds of nature into my music, and it really has that blend of acoustic, natural sounds with some electronic sounds as well. And yeah, this song Breath has been really powerful for me because it became a version called Breathe, and I've had 3 remixes of it from other remix producers. And I've realized, and it has like 500,000 streams right now on Spotify.
Wow, congrats.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Amazing.
Then you include like iTunes, Apple Music,
that's
Tidal. Awesome. There's all these apps now, right? And it's even on TikTok. So if you're
yes, I need to make a TikTok to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, that is great. And so, yeah, that definitely is. And I came to the realization the other day when a gentleman, Russell Ramo, he's an amazing guitarist, and he did this like lo-fi with this cool like drum beat to it and vibed out with his guitar playing. I was just like, this is like my signature song that everyone knows me by. And it's really, I think something's powerful in life when you can repurpose it, right? And I'm sure same for like a meme of yours. If someone shares your meme, if it gets out there and you get a lot of engagement, you're like, whoa, okay, I made this one thing, this one point in time, and it has a life of its own. And so the ripple effects, and I'm a part of Buddha Music Group as an artist, and I'm the marketing director, and our intention is raising the vibrations of the planet through art and music.
Love it.
And that song particularly is just consistently, it has a vocal version, it has like a chill down tempo version, it's going to have this guitar version. So yeah, it's so great. It's growing. And if you're a music producer and you want to do a remix of it, hit me up. I have the stamps.
Hit them up. Yeah. Hit
50-50 split.
Do it up. I even like, when I go walk my dog or just out in nature, like that's a song that I come back to sometimes just because it is very simple, and it is like in my yoga practice and my meditation, it's really coming back to the breath. Like no matter what is going on in your life, like if you're struggling with stress, anxiety, you can always come back to a mindful breath in and out. And that song Breathe is like, I'll be in pigeon pose or whatever. And it'll just be like, breathe, And I'm like, all right, yeah, I just need to breathe. And everybody out there, just breathe.
And we forget, right? So yeah, take a
Yeah.
deep breath in, let it out.
Yeah.
Let it out. Yeah. And also I will state that there's an amazing cellist. She's a soul sister. Her name's Christine Sear, and she's currently in Sicily. And we've been getting like a lot of the information about COVID-19 because Italy has been hit real hard with this coronavirus there. And they're basically on quarantine where they can't leave their house. Like if you leave, you can get fined basically. So it's really interesting because she plays the cello on it. And it also proves and shows to me that music, even though it can be a one-time recording and you create it and you release it, the individuals not only that contributed to that, and including, we talked about temporary emotions, the space I was in when that song came through, it honestly just came in. It was like, all right, that was amazing. It was like one of the fastest songs I ever wrote, and that's one of why it's my go-to as well as my favorite, is because, as we talked about when I was interviewing you last time, the flow state.
Flow state.
So if you're in that flow state and you're creatively, it's just like, all right, that was like ease and grace and flow, the DT flow.
Where were you when you made the song? Like, where were you?
I was in Encinitas, California, and it was a big moment for me because I had been asked to create a soundtrack for the beginning of this transformational festival that was down in, they call it Guadalupe Canyon. It's this really magical paradise south of the border in Mexico. It's increíble. Tienen que visitarlo, por favor. And so it's a, when you get introduced to a community of people that start to see your craft and your work, and they honor that, and they say, hey, we're going to do this opening ceremony. Everyone's going to be dressed in white, and everyone's going to be dropping into the space, and the energy is going to be this whole experience. It's transformational, similar like a Sedona Yoga Festival where they have an opening gathering. And DTO, we want you to design the invocational music for that. And it was such a powerful, honorable request that of course, as you're saying earlier, like anxiety, stress comes in. I was like, all right, I'm just going to breathe it out. And so guess what? The song Breath and Breathe just all came together.
Just natural, right?
And that's where it happened. And it was great to witness. And this is what a lot of artists and creatives talk about. Witness yourself creating. And John Lennon said it famously. He's like, I didn't write one song. I allowed for the song to write itself.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, mind blown, right? Yeah, mind blown. Because coming back to, this relaxation podcast show, the flow state, like you were talking about, the flow state, that relaxation where you're just kind of going with the flow and the universe is kind of working through you. And and I feel it too sometimes, as a creator, where sometimes I'm just forcing it. Sometimes I'm just trying to make something happen and forcing it. What do you do when you feel where you're like forcing something, where you're just like not feeling like this is like smooth and flow? Like what do you do what's your process on that?
Yeah, great question. I have a series of rituals that I go into. And one of those is to light a candle in the space that I'm in, to bring in the light and to get back to one of the 5 elements, right? Like, as I said, get back to basics, just like I'm in nature. I light a candle. I make sure I'm hydrated, nourished. Sometimes I honestly will take a hot bath or have Epsom salt, or if there's a jacuzzi or spa in my vicinity, I'll go there, right? And so it's really like preparing your mind, body, and spirit to go into that sacred zone where you know that you could create, and the possibilities are there to have these vibrations. And we all know that sound healing is one of the most powerful vibrations. You can shift your energy, shift your mood in any way. And for that intention to be there, and then to prep yourself. So of course we all have things in our mind. We have whatever you call it, chatter, to-do lists. Oh my gosh, why didn't I do that? Or I got to do this. And so basically how you calm the mind, I think, is really important. So that's what I said, like being in nature is a key thing. Having access to get back to basics, take a hot shower, or whatever it means for you. And then, as I said too, like light a candle, have some intention, just to say like, all right, I want to touch, move, and inspire. not only
Yes.
myself, but humanity. Like when you play that big a game, it really, you're calling to the cosmos, the universe. You know, we are the universe, we are one. And actually I have some songs that are called We Are One, We Are the Universe. And it's really powerful. And yes, and what you were stating earlier on is talking about if you get stuck or if you have like a writer's block or you're forcing it, I would also just sleep on it, which is
Yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
challenging to
That's really
do
good.
because a lot of times you get the momentum and, you know, life is momentum, right? That's like us, right? At one point we were, you know, 23 chromosomes and like boom, and then here we are. And there's this momentum or growth, we're organisms as we spoke about. And so you're like in this creative flow and you don't want to stop it. But then if you go, as they say in yoga, right? Find your edge. So
Yes.
creatively, if we find our edge, honor the edge.
Honor the edge, sleep on it. And I like those suggestions too. Like those are very simple, like light a candle. You know, it's not like, you know, you have to go do all this whole ceremony and like have a shrine and just kind of, you know, get back into the flow state, like light a candle or take a bath or go walk out in nature or sleep on it. Very simple, you know, because I've struggled with this sometimes too, is like you get into that point where you're like forcing stuff so much, you want to make something happen. And then you're just in that like momentum state where you're just forcing it. Whereas just literally lighting a candle or go taking a bath or sleeping on it, it is like relaxing. And you're just like taking a step back and you're like, all right, like just chill. And then boom, the ideas come randomly. You know, that for me, you know, writing a meme, like one time I was just in a writer's block. I never thought I would write like another good meme again, you know, because I had like written like an awesome meme and I'm just like, I have nothing, right? And then I just took a step back from it, took a couple of days off, and then I was eating at a restaurant, and then boom, just back to back to back, really good memes like came out. And like I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't see that happening. Like it was just kind of like that relaxation, that flow state. So great suggestions, Dave. Great suggestions, Dave. I want to know about Buddha Music Group. Like, tell me about Buddha Music Group. Like for the person out there that has no clue what it is, what is it?
Yes, it is a collective of artists. And what we do is we put on events, live streaming events, as well as in-person events. And we're always paying it forward. We use a few nonprofits out there. One is the Sean O'Shea Foundation that is providing teachers and funds to go to inner city kids in San Diego to have access to yoga and meditation practices. And then we work with some nonprofits that work with the military. My manager, Mark DeVoe, he is a disabled Marine. My brother was in the Army. My aunt was in the Navy. And so there's this giving back, paying it forward that we do. And it happens to be that all of us have that vision and intention. So we design music that is specifically to connect and create that healing. And there's been case studies that show that when people that are with post-traumatic stress are able to be in a space together and with music and also with yoga, and even if you're live streaming from your home, there's really a power of music that can bring people's spirits up. And sometimes the messages and the vibrations of the music, like you spoke about when you've heard some of my music, it just all of a sudden shifts the energy. All of a sudden you're in a different headspace. And so that's what we're creating. And we're always, as I said, like creating events that are paying it forward. And so my manager, Mark, as a disabled Marine, he's done a phenomenal job of keeping his passion alive because he knows, I mean, think about how wonderful music is. Music can shift your energy to make you want to just dance and move your body and groove. Music can, you know, get you in the space where all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that was like in 5th grade. I heard that song and I was at the school dance and, you know, I was slow dancing, you know, you have your hands on your hips and you're going back and forth, you know, that was like take my breath away from the movie Top Gun. Remember that one? Take my breath away. So you hear these sound vibrations and all of a sudden, or like my go-to band ever since I was a kid is Van Halen. You hear jump on the keys. It was like, the music can take you in so many directions. And as I was saying earlier, like when I play piano and have a cellist and just vibe out, have a sitar player, there's synergy that can take place. And so that's what we're doing at Buddha Peace Group is we're really playing with those energies with the intention to create an impact in the world, not only by paying it forward to charities, but also like creating music that's heart-centered. So that's really what we're about, is heart-centered creations.
Heart-centered. I feel that too. When you reached out to me on Instagram, then I came on your show, like I just feel that genuine, like you are, it's the truth. Like you're trying to help people,
Yep.
just because you see, like, I see like so much content out there, and I feel like people have a very good filter with like what's genuine and like what's authentic and what's not authentic. And that's what I love about you, Dave, is like I can feel the authenticity and I can feel like the vibes of helping people through your music. So appreciate that. Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate you. And I've noticed, with the shift in what's going on, you're going to be doing these events. You're going to be going to, Sedona Yoga Festival, and now
I had a whole tour planned, man.
Whole tour planned, and like and now I see you're doing things online. So talk about some of the things that you're doing now through Zoom or through your show. I want to hear about your show too. So let's talk about your show.
Totally.
So yeah, talk about what you're doing online and your show. Talk to me about it.
Yeah. So with the shift in the matrix,
yeah, right.
I feel that the paradigm has gone from live events to live streaming events. And just like streams of consciousness and the flow, as we have this theme of water and movement, breath to movement, where adaptability, and you know this from your yoga practice, brother, like it's all about strength, balance, and flexibility.
Yes.
And if you can have that choice to be resilient, to adapt to the moment, this moment, that moment, the next moment, because life right now is like swirling around in different spots and spaces. And I'm grateful to say that I have a master's degree in educational technology. And so my background of teaching is really coming in handy, because when you are able to teach here, like on Zoom or whatever platform you're going to use, it's important that you understand the mechanics of it. Because there's, left brain, right brain. And with the left brain, it's more of like analytical, and you have to know like file folders and how to push this button, do that. I mean, even for you to do the whole show, there's all these steps in order for it to get out to the world, right? Same thing with making a song. Like some people just push play on their favorite app and they're like, yeah, I like that song. It goes for 3 minutes and they're done. I'm like, that's an iceberg, like below that 3 minutes of time or 4 minutes, like there were so many steps and emails and Dropboxes and
true.
Movement on the instruments and you name it. So that's for me, like, gosh, it's just a powerful lesson of being able to pivot and say human history has had, 1918, of course, with the flu epidemic that happened there after World War I, and that killed over 50 million people, right? So and sad. Back then, there wasn't this infrastructure that we have now. So one of the coolest things
online and be able to, do this right here, right?
We get to have this infrastructure that allows us to be connected and to be creative and to also offer whatever it is that was energetically about to be offered in 2020. Remember how when 2020 was coming, it was like, this is going to be the most epic year ever.
Right. Yeah.
And so to me, I invite anyone that's watching or listening right now, like take that energy that was cultivated and nourished within your soul and your passions, then just reroute that and have a fresh approach. Because what we can do and we get to do as human beings at any moment is reinvent our lives. And not only as an individual, but as a collective mass, we're all reinventing what's possible.
Oh yeah, all together. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure this out, especially yoga community, meditation community, music community, with some of my musician friends, DJ Taz and Soul Rising, they're all figuring out too. And they're all of you are adjusting great. Like there was a struggle. Like I saw the struggle and all of you saw the struggle for like a week or two, like, oh my gosh, all my gigs are canceled. Like what's going to happen? And then boom, like I see flyers of like,
live streaming classes, and events and classes and retreats. And that's the new paradigm. And one of the great things that I'm really excited about this, and I'll be announcing this right now in this moment, is I have a collective of 5 other music producers out there, and we are putting together a whole program for people to learn how to create their own music specifically on
amazing.
meditation, yoga, with any kind of vibes that they want to create. It's a team of us because we all were touring musicians and everything got canceled. And I'm like, some of the names you would recognize, we're still like in the incubator stage right now. So I'm going to be vague purposefully, but we're going to launch this whole program, this whole system for people to be able to take that seed of an idea creatively and then how to get their music out there in the world. And with the time that we're spending indoors, I mean, I love watching other people's art and creations, and I feel like there's a balance for all of us. Like for right now, Yogi Bryan, you could be listening to someone else's podcast or watching some other content, but you're choosing to be a content creator. And that's really my call to action for anyone out there is like, what is your call to action as far as your creativity or artistry? And what kind of legacy as a possibility could you have with the impact that your soul is here to like unleash to the world? And now we have this time to really focus on that legacy that we can create. And what you said, and a lot of the artists you mentioned, friends of mine, we're all this tight group of yogi musicians. And so that's what we've done is there's an online Lucidity, for example. We're going to be in Santa Barbara this weekend. And Himalaya and I are teaching our transformational movement class, and we're live streaming it on Sunday. And that's one of that are quickly saying, oh, I can't do that in person anymore. And some of the festivals are proactively saying, hey, we were going to plan our festival in July, but you know what? We're just going to launch a live streaming event at the end of whatever month. Like, so everyone is realizing that there's just like capitalistic terms, right? There's supply and demand. Yep. So more people I feel are almost in a sense like demanding or seeking healing opportunities because, as I said, like if we're all indoors, we're all at home and we don't have a meditation practice, we don't have a yoga practice. Let's say we were used to going to like a physical gym and working out. Like I'm working with a gentleman named Ipo. He has a class that we're live streaming on Wednesdays, and it's martial arts, fitness, and yoga. And I'm piping in the music, I'm playing it on my end, and we're doing everything like live, real time. And so we get to see all, it's like the screens. It's almost like the Brady Bunch, times like 50 or so, like all these little boxes of people. But it's so cool. I'll share something that another yoga instructor that I'm working with, Kat, we are doing Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And, I'll put my schedule up on my website so everyone can see, but everything shifted into live streaming essentially. And what we're recognizing is the power of no walls. And what I mean by that, you and I both been in the yoga studios where you're like, man, there can only be like 20 mats in here. And it would be great if more community members could come in. And now you can have 200, 2,000. You can have as many people as you want,
right?
In their bedrooms, in their living rooms,
where
they want to be. There are no walls. So it's the abundance, even though at the beginning of this, there wasn't a scarcity moment. I admit it, I'm guilty as charged. I had some scarcity, like, whoa, I was going to launch my Making Music for Meditation program at the Sedona Yoga Festival, as I was sharing with you. And it's like, okay, well, that energy that I had that was going to like burst out to others, I still get to do that. Now I just get to live stream it through a variety of countries and locations and possibly find people out there that had never heard of who DTO was. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I just heard his music. Oh, I'd love to work with him. I'd love to license his music. I'd love to, hear more of his upcoming singles. And, recently I've been talking about the 4 C's when it comes to like your audience, right? You have your audience of people that are part of like the culture of Yogi Bryan, right? They follow you, they know who you are. And so the first 4 before is cold, like you have your cold market. Someone doesn't know who you are. And honestly, if I'm simply a local San Diego musician, if I were only that, of course I'd played internationally, then I would only have my particular reach of people. And then from the cold, you get to people that are curious. Maybe they heard someone say, oh, have you heard DTO or Yogi Bryan? It's like, no, I haven't, but I heard that's the second or third time I've heard that name. So then people become curious. And then the 4th C is then they experience something you're doing and then they're like converted to that.
Oh yeah.
Then like boom. And then the last one, which is culture. And so how do you create in this global yoga community, how can you create a culture within the culture of high vibes and connection with others where there's value and worth to what you're creating in the world? And so now I feel that there are more people out there that are realizing like, hey, I'm having this stress, I'm having this anxiety, I don't know what to do. I heard something about breath work or meditation or
Yes.
kundalini or some like asana or something, Yoda, or was it yoga? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like try not, do or do not. There's no try. So it's interesting because I feel like now we get to appeal to whomever it is. And, you know, a couple of bearded dudes like you and I just talking about this 5,000-year-old practice from India.
Right.
Like, who would have thought that?
Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought that? And who would have thought that, like, you know, especially for me teaching online now, I've been teaching like Zoom classes, you know, I'm figuring out like time zones and what time zone it is in Turkey because someone wants to take my class in Turkey or Australia. And like when I was teaching at just a regular studio, like it's just local, right? It's just the people that are coming there local. Like
Yep.
now I can come take your class in my living room, you know,
Yep.
your music. I can experience your music. I can experience a class with a yoga teacher. I've like with Pedro Yogi Memes, like I've taken his class and I have not been able to take his class because he lives in Florida.
Oh,
So I'm
nice.
able to take like my favorite classes with yoga teachers. I'm able to experience like musicians like yourself, you know,
Right.
during these difficult times. So it is just a shift, and you know, I'm loving what you're doing. You know, with all the posts you're doing and the classes that you're doing. I need to take one. I need to take one of your classes.
And this is all developing in real time as we speak. I mean, I just got off the phone with a good friend in Boca Raton, Florida, and I'd been out there for this event that's for the Connected Warriors, where they bring yoga to veterans and military men and women that have post-traumatic stress. And so it's one of those really powerful offerings. And then we connected today because I saw her live streaming on Facebook, and I was like, hey, let's do a class together, because I've been called by 3 or 4 different yoga teachers in that part of the world to be like, hey, when are you coming back? The last tour was amazing. I can't wait to have you in the studio. And I'm like, hey, let's collaborate now. And that's where I
Now's
feel,
the time.
and I'm a digital marketing coach, and I work with different yoga studios. I support them in different ideas. And the ones that I'm essentially like seeing become more and more prosperous over time is the ones that are like, all right, we don't know. This virus has its own timeline. Silly humans think we can control everything, right? Mother Nature's like, back to your room, stay inside. And what's interesting though is seeing the live streaming yoga classes really start to take off. And it's just, wow, it just proves that this practice is so strong that people aren't going to stop it just because there's a world pandemic. Actually, I see that there are people that are deepening their practice. And it's what you said, brother, like there's a deeper like seeking of other instructors to be like, whoa, I could take a class at this studio on the East Coast. Or as you said, you have a student in Turkey that wants to take your class, or Australia. Or before, I mean, when I was at the Bali Spirit Fest, like one of my most, I'll share with you like a big, like mind opening, heart expansive moment.
Heck yeah.
Like, you know, so I was, you know, playing in a garage band when I was a kid and rock and roll and just having fun. I played the drums and keys and all that. And essentially, like, if you were jamming loud enough, maybe your neighbors heard you. Of course, if you're really loud, then the cops would come and hear you, and, which happened a few times. And so, like, my, let's call it like my dimensional awareness of who I can have an impact with. Because, you know, when you're playing music and you love it and you feel like you're in alignment with it, it's like, oh, I can't wait to play a show. And oh my God, I got my first show and I got my first paid gig. And, you know, any artist or musician can totally understand what I'm going through here emotionally. And then when I was at the Bali Spirit Fest, fast forward last year, I'm playing my music for like a class, like 200 plus people, Himalayas guiding everyone. And before that, you know, you can go on your apps, like Apple has an app for artists and Spotify has an app for musicians that you can go on. And it's essentially like, you can see like which countries people are following you on. And actually I'll pull it up right now since we're in real time. So here are like the top countries.
Oh, wow.
And then you go into, Australia's top 5. So look at, these are all the countries that follow.
Whoa.
You, right? And it goes on and on and on and on. And, you know, it's just, you look at the data, the statistics, and I'm like, oh, cool. Someone's listening to my music in Guatemala. Que bien, fantástico. Yeah. And then here's someone in La República Dominicana, or here's someone in Iceland. Hey, I guess I'm in Iceland. Super cool, right? So of course, these algorithms and analytics are awesome to look at. And then when I was at the Bali Spirit Fest, you look at the sea of people. There's 10,000 people that go to this week-long transformational festival. And there's people from, you name, it's like the UN. There's like every country. And there would be someone that comes up and I'd start introducing myself. Like, hey, I'm DT. Oh, I know who you are. Can I take a selfie with you? And I got your music on my playlist. And I'm like,
that's so cool.
Mind blowing. I was like, wait, you're a yoga teacher in South Korea, or you're a teacher in Finland or Argentina, or you're in Australia. So all of a sudden I've like created more and more like these networks of yoga instructors that I found out like love and adore and found my music. If it's on like Release Radar, or as you said, brother, like you play my music one of your classes and someone comes up and says, hey, who's this artist? So I really got that ripple effect in how as an artist, it's important to get back to yourself, right? And as I was saying earlier, like being in nature, having these practices for me to stay creative and to maintain that flow state, it matters because this is like my purpose, my dharma. And for me to have those dots that connect and to witness that and then to feel the impact and to see it is like, wow, okay. Because sometimes, you know, you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. We all lose our way, right? And that's the whole thing about human existence, right? We forget, we remember, come back to your why. Yeah, and why am I doing this? And then, so those are those, like, I'd say that's one of my biggest, like, aha moments as an artist. Amazing. Yeah.
That's amazing. And where can someone that, say someone's in the yoga community, right? Or someone's at a teacher, like where can they reach out to you at, like if they want to collab with you or want to do an event, like maybe an online event right now, or in the future, if you're listening to this in the future and like everything is restricted or unrestricted and you can do something, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. DTOmusic.com, DTO Music on Instagram. Pretty much I branded myself DTO Music everywhere. And yeah, just shoot me a private message. You could also, of course, my email is through my website. And yeah, however you want to find, you know, opportunities to connect, collaborate. And as I've mentioned, like I'm either licensing my music, I'm creating online learning institutes, and I'm also, of course, performing for live streaming events. I feel like there's an opportunity for all of us to come together. I even have a friend that's doing this huge festival that's online. His artist name's Equanimous. He did a remix of the song Breath. And so he's putting on this big festival. So many, like my good friend Parangi that we were actually at the same hotel with. We were in Bali. And so like just all these connections and all these people, it's just like family, like soul family, soul tribe. And so that's where like all of us somehow are connected somewhere. And that's where for me, I guess like I'm such a like an open public servant because I've been a high school teacher for many years in the past. Like, like I'm like, and my dad was actually involved with like local government. He was a city councilman and he taught high school for 35 years and I taught for multiple years. And so like my persona, who I am and like the heart of who I am is all about community and connections. And a lot of people are kind of blown away how accessible I am and how just like, I'll respond to someone pretty quickly.
You do. Yeah.
That's how we connected, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. When we connected, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I listen to you on Spotify and we're connecting right now. It's so cool. You know, cause you like, especially me, like sometimes I think, oh, it's their admin or somebody like
they got an assistant.
Yeah. They got an
virtual
assistant.
They got a VA on like Fiverr or something.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was really you. And where like, for a person that wants to listen to your music, where can they go?
Well, a lot of people that practice yoga tend to I'm talking statistics, tend to listen on Spotify. And what I do have is a yoga playlist of the month that is streaming on Spotify. So if anyone wants to check me out there, the best way to support artists and musicians, not only myself, is there's a website called Bandcamp. Or for me, if you go to download.dtomusic, you can actually get the file. And now more than ever, even though we currently have the internet, we're streaming, if you really want to get into the higher, juicier qualities sonically of music, you really want the downloadable file, ideally, right? Because streaming, sometimes there's bad receptivity and you never know, right? Maybe you just want to be out in the middle of nature and you want to make sure you can hear that music. So downloading music, I feel, even though it doesn't happen that much, it's really a great way to support artists. Or like I have a name your price business model on that site. So I had someone the other day, my song Mumbai Moves, completely like generously give me like $111 for one
Oh,
single
wow.
song, because they just
Wow.
knew like, hey, I've had this, as you said, all of my gigs, all of my tour, everything stopped, everything got canceled.
Mhm.
And so from that space of generosity, and also someone being present to the healing benefits as a
Yes.
possibility of what the music can provide their lives. And, you know, when I say the word healing, it's more of like shifting energy, right? Someone happens to be receptive, and the music alchemically was there in a moment where it really mattered. Like I had a gentleman once, it happened the first time, where I have a piano composition called Flight, and he's actually a pretty well-known director in Hollywood. And I pitched my song, and he did actual like the videography for one of these music videos I did. It's actually a really cool thing. It's a opera music video that has like electronic hip hop sounds to it. So it's a really interesting combo.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But it shows like my passion for all styles of music. But basically, he listened to my piano composition one evening. All of a sudden, I woke up in the morning. He like sent me like $44, and I was like, for one song. And he was like, dude, you don't know how much that mattered. And like I just like he was in a portal, and then like that song came, and it's like something happened energetically. And who's to know? And that's kind of like the whole saying, like if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there, does it make a sound?
Right.
So as an artist, like if you create music and no one's there to support, or there's no playlist or no one actually utilizing your music, why are you doing it? I feel like I still create music for my own personal process of growth and expansion. And every song has its own emotional state I was in. It's like we're now in spring, right? So there's different seasons. And yeah, I would definitely feel too, like the main four stages of communication are: you have the sender, you have the message, you have the receiver, then you have the feedback. So as I was sharing with you my story, like when I was in Bali and I got that feedback right away, I was like, oh, now I know I'm the sender, and the message is the music, and the receiver are, you know, the community members. And then I get to like have that. That's why it's called the feedback loop, right?
Yeah, feedback loop, because
it's
a win-win. It's a win-win for everyone, you know, especially Bandcamp. I love Bandcamp myself as a creator. Like say if I'm making a Zoom video, or if I need to make a video and I need music back there, then I can support the artist that way. This was an impromptu question. I wasn't planning on asking this question, but
I'm an open book. Let's hear it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you are an open book. I love it. Now, if a yoga teacher or if a creator needs music, right? They need music maybe for a video. Like, can they go on your Bandcamp and like purchase a song and like use it for their yoga class? Like, and this is a selfish question. I'm asking it like for me.
Of course. Yeah.
Can you go on there and like purchase like, you know, because I know there's some like membership levels sometimes where it's like, okay, if you purchase this, like you can use it for like YouTube, but if you're purchasing this for an actual paid app or something like that, it goes to a different level.
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously this comes into like international law and copywriting and licensing. And, you know, for Buddha Music Group, we have an attorney for all of this because we want to make sure they having our stuff. And then there's like BMI, there's ASCAP. And so what's interesting, like the quick answer is, you really are not supposed to use any music and license it without permission from the artist.
Yes.
And like the European Union about 6 months ago passed a sweeping law that basically stated like, this is art. This is someone's creation. It's like if I took the Tesla blueprints and started to build another car, called it the Tesla, Elon Musk might be upset. And I'm sure you have a room full of lawyers that would be after us. So it's one of those things where it technically is legally the artist and whomever the songwriters are. So sometimes I do creations where it's 50-50 split. And also Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And have you ever been flagged by using music and it says, hey, the copyright? Okay, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just
on like, you know, random things where it's like in the background, you don't even notice it, and then it's like, oh, it caught for that. And it's good because I feel like right now it is a tough line because it's so different, right? Like if you're streaming a Zoom class as a yoga teacher, if you're doing a meditation as a yoga teacher and you're charging for that, but then you have like an artist music playing in the background, it's got to be some different territory, right? Where it's which is like, you know, it's unknown.
Well, the yoga studios that a lot of my friends and contacts are actually either studio owners, managers, instructors, podcasters, meme creators, all of it. Like, so when I actually, if I were to put word yoga in my contacts in my phone, literally it'd probably be like 500 plus people I know in the world of yoga, right? And so a lot of managers have told me that they've got cease and desist letters from record labels to say you're not supposed to be streaming. This is a personal phone of yours, and to like if you own a restaurant or a bar, you have to pay a different license in order to stream like the NFL games, or if you want to stream music. So it's kind of the same idea that you ideally want to get that artist or the person that created it some compensation, especially nowadays. When remember the old days where you buy a physical CD for like $20?
Yeah, right.
It sounds so old right now.
Right.
So that's the thing too. It's like one of those, and also I feel too energetically, and this is what you mentioned earlier, and I'm grateful you gave me the opportunity to speak on this. Like if anyone out there is listening, it's really nice when you get to know who the artist is, because you could be completely in alignment, have the same, this is top 3 thing that keeps on coming to my mind. It's like having a shared vision with someone, a shared purpose, and then complementary skill sets where I can create the music. Let's say you're a videographer or a director, you want to create a film. I'll create the soundtrack music. We'll work together, we'll collaborate, and we'll make it happen. And same thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I love to see, is that true. One of my superpowers is being a connector as well. Like I love to connect people to other people. And so if someone's like, hey, I have this vision for my music and I really want like a cello or a violin. I don't play those instruments. I don't play, and I just call my friends. I have like a list of cellists and saxophone players and sitar players. I have like a whole database, and which is I'll tell you one thing that's hilarious during this time. The blind spot that I had is I had no clue that people would be hiring me to be their consultant when it comes to all of this that you're looking at right now. What kind of microphone do I need? Do I have to wear headphones during an interview, or when I'm speaking, or when I'm teaching a yoga class? Oh, I actually want to play my music. How do I put my music through here? So so many people reach out to me, and I'm like, oh, cool. This is like a side opportunity for me to support people in the world.
A consultant there. I mean, I was impressed being on your show, and maybe we can talk about your show for a little bit. Do you still have some time?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I want to talk about your show, because I was on your show and I was super impressed, especially being a co-host on the Yogi Show podcast. And we use Zoom, and you had this amazing setup and it was just so smooth, and you were throwing stuff on the screen, and I'm like, just my world was blown on how smooth your show setup is. Would you like to talk about your show? Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for that. So, from the heart of who I am is like, I'm a musician that happened to be touch, moved, and inspired and transformed through yoga. So let's start with like the evolution of that. And then because I started to create and design music, and I will, give a big shout out to Deepak Chopra, because he endorsed my first album, which really supported me.
I saw that on your website. I was like, whoa, how cool is that?
Well, it was that whole, like, as I said, if you create something if no one's there, and obviously when someone that powerful in the world. And a big shout out to my dear soul sister, Dr. Tara Peterson. She's the nutritional scientist that works with Deepak, and she sang a kirtan song on that album. And so they have this awesome connection, and we're able to, get that to the masses. And so from there, then it comes into, all right, so many people in my world practice yoga, teach yoga. The only way I've become the artist and musician when it comes to designing music specifically for breathwork, yoga, and movement is because of their guidance, their cues, their holding a container of a space where all of a sudden I feel safe, I feel touched, I feel like, wow. Everyone knows the feeling. If you haven't been in a Shavasana, it's the part of a yoga asana practice at the very end where you're just lying down, you've done all of the moves, and it's just like so blissful and sparkly. And so basically from there, I was just really, admiring so many yoga teachers that take this journey. And so I launched a show, which is the 5Q interview, and I reach out to people in the yoga world. And that's what one of my callings has been, is to, because I've been a school teacher for many years, so I'm very comfortable speaking in front of people.
You are, man. You're natural. You're natural. You're great host on your show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And so that's what it's about, is reaching out to people and really going into the background, similar to format of the interviews that you had for me. Is like, I'd like to hear like how you got into yoga, what inspired you to become a teacher, and why are you so passionate about meditation? Right? Then it really allows for someone's story. And my biggest measuring stick, I'll say, is, I could talk to surfers and yogis in San Diego, but I also have these roots from like the Midwest. So I always like have my Midwestern brain. I'd be like, okay, from like the foo-foo to like salt of the earth, like what are we doing? And, of course there's reality and magic, like life's a combination of both. I definitely believe in it all. And at the same time, I want to always have a balance. So a great example is a friend of mine, Rachel Peters. She's an amazing yoga instructor in Colorado. We went to high school together. And guess what? After 25 plus years of being out of high school, we've known we were going to be, going to meet at the Sedona Yoga Festival. By the way, that was another person we were going to see each other in person since high school. And it's so powerful to be like, yeah, I want to hear about her journey with yoga because she's a Midwestern kid like I am. So, and I happened to, my first snare drum that I bought in 5th grade was from her brother. So we actually revealed that. I had my high school yearbook out. We were going through all the archives. But the intention of the show is to really understand how any age group, any typical or non-typical person that you'd ever think would ever get into this practice of yoga. Like, let's share that, because I'd love to inspire people to say, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, whatever you've believed in or not believed in. It's like, this is a practice that it's like the never ending gobstopper. It just keeps on giving and giving.
Get down the rabbit hole and down the rabbit hole. You just keep growing. The doors unlock. And the practice is amazing. What is your, me being a co-host on a show and like you get to talk to amazing people, what was your like aha moment? What was your guest? I'm sure all your guests were your favorite guests, especially me, but yes, I want to know like what guest that was just mind blowing for you, for the audience. Like maybe they need to go back and listen to it. Like what guest where you're just like, you keep thinking about what they said and you're just like, dang, that was good.
Oh man, I have a couple. Obviously, I know you. It's like being a school teacher saying, "Who's your favorite student?" or asking a parent, "Who's your favorite kid?" You know.
And all guests that are listening that you've been on his show, like, hey,
plug your ears.
You're all great. You're all great, but we just want to know like the aha moment, because we've all had those.
Of course, and you asked me what my favorite song was too, so it's in the same. If you could pick one person, yeah. Right. Well, I'll share this. I recently did my first international interview with Måns, and he's from Sweden, and his artist name is Songs of Eden. He's collaborated with Taz as well. Yeah. And big shout out to DJ Taz.
I see him going on live all the time. Like, perfect. He's going on live all the time.
Yeah, and so DJ Taz Rashid is featuring our song Mumbai Moves on his playlist right now. So we have this awesome connection. But when I was able to do the international interview, and he's in his studio in Sweden, and really, like, because we were speaking into like the reality of what's going on the planet with the virus and COVID-19, we were just like, yeah, this is a global pandemic. And what's interesting is the word pandemic is a Greek word, and pan means all and demic means people. And it really boom, like, okay, this is it. Like, we're all experiencing this, and we still get to be connected. We still get to be creative. He was in the studio. We like debuted the song, and it was just great to just get a touch of like, okay, here's a European, here's some kid from California, and able to really connect with someone on that global scale. And as I said, I've collaborated many times with different artists in different countries where they'll perform or play the different music. And I haven't met Måns in person. Same thing. Like, this is the cool part about digital connectivity. And I use a program we call them digital audio workstations. And that's one of the things I teach in my online courses of how to use these programs. But basically, we can file share, and we can connect on WhatsApp. We could do videos. I actually jumped on one of his IG lives recently. And we're going to plan on doing like an IG live.
I want to see it. I can't wait. I always see it pop up, and I haven't been able to go on just because I've been busy, but like he's like live all the time. I just see his things popping up nonstop.
Yeah. So for interviewing him, and I'll give a big shout out to a friend of mine. He's Grammy nominated, his name's Stonebridge. He's from Sweden, and he watched the whole interview. So it was one of those things where I felt like, wow, here's this Grammy nominated artist that I admire. And I did a remix for one of his songs back in the day in like 2013. And now I'm interviewing someone from Sweden. We're designing music for yoga. We're all like in this private direct message group on Instagram, like all these yoga instructors and musicians and producers. We're all like supporting each other. So if we have a launch or a release, they're called engagement groups, right? Like, so how do we can support each other, get as much engagement, and really just have each other's back? Be like, hey, there's not a lot of people that even practice yoga in the West. I mean, more and more people over time. And then how many musicians are there? There are a lot of musicians in the world, but then how many musicians are like designing music specifically for this practice. And then you go down and you're like, okay, we got to stick together. It's like the Avengers.
Yeah, it's like it's abundant. It's abundant universe. It's abundant world. Like it's all work together.
And I will say the huge aha moment too with that interview is we were speaking similar, it's kind of what we're talking about now, is like there's a world now of people that practice yoga, and the contrast is there's competition, right? Like we were taught competition, which there's healthy competition, right? Like if you're going to play a sport or something like that, you get to move your body, you get to work as a team. There's so many benefits, right? So competition's great. And there's this power of collaboration where besides saying I'm going to be number one, I'm going to crush everyone else and leave everyone behind, is like, no, actually let's all collaborate on different projects, different songs. Let's add all of our music on yoga playlists. Let's, if we're at a show together, let's all like get on stage with each other and support each other. Oh, you got a brand new release? Cool. I'm going to share that today for you. So that's like the big paradigm shift. And that was the interview with him that really allowed me to be as present as possible, to be like, wow, we're truly globally connected, and just grateful that we get to support and like collaborate. And we're actually going to be working on our second song. He just sent me over the foundation of the idea the other day.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's moving.
It's moving and grooving. I love that. I love that last part. I mean, I love the whole interview, but that last part, just, competition, like collaborating, like let's all work on this together. And I'm 100% on board with that. Love you, brother, with that.
Yeah.
And
thanks,
we're out of time, but I want you to, just the audience out there listening, like, what is your best advice on like overcoming anxiety or relaxing? Like just in a moment like this, like what is your best advice to do?
Wonderful question. Yeah, I know this has been a theme of our interview, but like the breath really matters. And it doesn't mean to be like this, like, oh, I'm in this calming, chill, relax. Like sometimes like it's really taking in like just breathe through, because we are mammals. We're part of the animal kingdom. And just there's different breathing exercises and practitioners that can guide you, in particular breath work, where sometimes you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 10. And you repeat, and you have these different patterns and cadences and routines of the breath work. So those have been really powerful. I'm in a men's group, and we always dive into those practices. And at the beginning, we're just like, filled with anxiety, or this is happening. We might have like some breakdown or upset in our relationship, or something that happened that we thought was going to, or we have a global pandemic and we can't actually meet in person, but we're just meeting on, on the computer. But it's like somehow when we're all breathing collectively, and even if on the individual level you get to do that, then I feel like that's really powerful. So that's like my one thing to inspire people. And as I said earlier, like get outside, like
get outside.
I know, of course, there's, stay responsibly, a distance away from people and be responsible there. But nevertheless, like, don't forget that we are here on this planet, and you can still breathe fresh air and go on a trail. Or as you said, Yogi Bryan, you take your dog for a walk, you get outside, you feel the sunshine, you get your vitamin D. And I think you appreciate it way more than you ever have before, I'd imagine, right? So it's like gratitude. The little things, right? Remember, like life is, as I was saying earlier, like how do you measure life? Like sometimes just one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one question at a time, one answer at a time.
Yes.
That ability to be in that place. And then I would say the last thing is to really, really ask the why. Like, what are you up to? And I think a lot of people that have, it's horrible how many people have lost their jobs, and there could be a silver lining on the other side. Maybe that person was like, you know what? I didn't like that job anyway. Like I didn't feel seen. I wasn't valued. My worth was never appreciated by the people I work. I'm not saying people say that all the time, but maybe someone had that like aha moment, the lights turned on. They're like, I'm actually going to become this. So like Shakespeare and Leonardo da Vinci, like during the bubonic plague, or during like this huge, like in the 1606, like Shakespeare wrote some of his best works during that time. So I feel like for creative people, it's your time to rise. It's your time to shine, and pick up that, paintbrush, pick up that instrument, pick up that microphone, do a podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. Pivot. Everybody just, exactly. Pivot. Just find the solution. And there's always an opportunity in these struggles. There's always an opportunity. And Dave, thank you so much for all your just wonderful vibes and what you're
Yeah.
doing in the world and your music. I truly it truly helps me relax. It truly helps me in my practice with your music. And thank you so much for coming on the show.